Among the few conflicts that are happening in the world right now, there is this conflict that does not receive a lot of media attention. And that is the conflict that is happening in the eastern part of the DRC. Violence rekindled in 2022 with the Rwandan-backed rebel group called the M23, launched successful offensives against the Congolese army, making them abandon their posts in the border town of Bunagana, leaving behind assault rifles and empty artillery shells. Close to about 180,000 people were forced to leave their homes by November of 2022 after the rebels came near to recapture the provincial city of Goma that they had captured 12 years ago. The conflict that is happening in eastern DRC is a continuation of the 27-year period of periodic upheaval that started since Mobutu Sese Seko, the then president of Zaire, now known as the DRC Congo, was ousted from power through a nationwide rebellion with the help of foreign and neighboring powers in 1997. This conflict has long revolved around ethnic tensions among the multi-ethnic groups in the DRC and disputes over control of Congo's mineral resources, unsurprisingly majority of which are located in the east, where fighting takes place. Wacha tuone historia hii vita na mashida imewaletea wananchi wa DRC Congo. Conflict in the Congo has long existed since the country gained independence from Belgium in 1960. In 1965, a Congolese military officer by the name of Joseph Desire Mobutu staged a bloodless coup against the elected government of Prime Minister Patrice Lumumba. This coup was a result of infightings within the government that was caused by ideological differences. Kumbuka, this is the 60s, during the Cold War, senye the West and the Soviet Union walikuwa na fight over influence.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country.
Конец, могила колониальному рабству! Долой его и похоронить его чем глубже, тем лучше!
And Congo being a place full of tons of natural resources, especially high-grade uranium, the main ingredient for an atomic bomb, the US ensured that the Congo was under its influence. Because first of all, that is where they got uranium that helped Oppenheimer develop the atomic bomb. They went on to back Mobutu, who was anti-communist, and executed Patrice Lumumba, who was a communist sympathizer. After Mobutu took power, he went on to be very autocratic. His government cracked down on his dissidents, and corruption became very rampant in the Congo. Mobutu also fueled up ethnic tensions in the densely populated east. He gave a lot of political power to the ethnic group of the Banyamulenge, who consisted of people who immigrated to the Congo from neighboring Rwanda and Burundi before independence. And this made a lot of Congolese ethnic groups xenophobic, leading to violent escalations against the Banyamulenge. Mobutu ensured that the ethnic groups fought against each other so as he could prevent a unified uprising against his rule. He learned this vital lesson from the colonizers, the art of divide and rule, and it worked for a distinct period of time. Until in 1996, senye ground waliacha kujaza uji kwa kichwa, and they started seeing how Mobutu was making them fight against each other, and how rubbish of a lifestyle he lived when 90% of the population lived in abject poverty. With the help from the Rwandan, Angolan and Ugandan troops, the Banyamulenge and other Congolese ethnic groups who were once foes allied together and formed the AFDL that was led by Laurent Kabila, who was a very harsh critic of Mobutu. The AFDL faced little resistance from the demoralized army of Mobutu and arrived in Kinshasa just 8 months after the rebellion had started. Mobutu was toppled and fled to Morocco, where he died in September of 1997, leaving Kabila as the new head of state.
Laurent Désiré Kabila, président de la République, je jure fidélité à la nation,
Mnaweza kuwa mkiwonder why foreign troops were involved in ousting Mobutu. And understanding the role that foreign countries have played in destabilizing the DRC, itakusaidia sana kujua why a country like Rwanda, that is 89 times smaller than the Congo, is playing a major role in stirring conflict in the Kivu regions. It all dates back in 1994, before Mobutu was overthrown, where in the neighboring country of Rwanda, an ethnic Hutu-led government allowed a nationwide purge of close to 1 million ethnic Tutsis. Following the genocide, the Hutu-led government was overthrown by a Tutsi rebel group called the Rwandan Patriotic Front that was based in neighboring Uganda. After seizing power, ethnic Hutus together with the genociders began a mass exodus towards the Congo, fearing reprisal by the new Tutsi government that was led by Paul Kagame. The Kigali government wasn't gonna sit around and allow the genociders to walk scot-free after they tried to eliminate a whole ethnic group. The Rwandan soldiers started minor incursions in the Congo with the aim of rooting out the genociders who took refuge together with the Hutu refugees. The operation was later pumped up when the Congolese rose up and overthrew Mobutu. After Kabila took power, nothing really changed in the DRC. Just like Mobutu, Kabila became extremely corrupt, and division within his rebel group the AFDL ensued because of power-sharing disputes stirred by ethnic tensions. But his main threat came from the foreign forces that helped him seize power, especially Rwanda and Uganda. Kabila ordered the armies of the two nations to leave the Congo, but they were very reluctant to do so, mainly because they benefited heavily by plundering Congo's natural resources, mainly gold, diamonds, and coltan, where coltan was turning out to be a valuable mineral, as it is used to manufacture mobile phones and electronic devices. But for Rwanda, they were not only interested in the minerals. Their main issue was the presence of Hutu extremists in eastern DRC, who took part in the Rwandan genocide 4 years earlier, and also the repatriation of Rwandan Tutsis who fled the country during the genocide, together with the Rwandan Hutus who fled after the RPF took power. Opposition grew against the government of Kabila, and Kabila started accusing Rwanda and Uganda for plotting to oust him. This led Kabila to arm his allies and the Hutu genociders against Rwanda and Ugandan-backed rebel groups, and the Banyamulenge, triggering another uprising that ended with him being killed by one of his former child soldiers.
That we want negotiations with Mr. Kabila. We want even to negotiate a ceasefire with Mr. Kabila, as long as Kabila understands that there is a fire.
On the 16th of January 2001, Kabila was assassinated by his bodyguard Rashidi, a former child soldier. Rashidi was then shot dead while trying to escape, taking with him the truth about the assassination and those behind it.
Following the assassination, Kabila was then succeeded by one of his children. This man, Joseph Kabila. Unlike his father, Kabila tried to improve life in the Congo. He made peace deals with some rebel groups and integrated them in the Congolese army, and also signed peace deals with Rwanda and Uganda, promising to suppress the Hutu genociders and anti-Ugandan groups present in the Congo. In return, Rwanda and Uganda were to stop the armament of the Banyamulenge people and the full withdrawal of their troops from the Congo. Joseph Kabila coming into power marked the end of the Second Congo War. But soon after vita kuisha, kulikuwa na signs that some people were not fully committed to the peace process. In early 2004, some members of the Rally for Congolese Democracy, the RCD, which was a rebel group that played a role in ousting Kabila, waliamua secede from the peace deal. Wakaamua create their own rebel group known as the National Congress for the Defense of the People, the CNDP, led by this man, Laurent Nkunda. Chenye kilifanya Nkunda to dissociate himself with the government ni kwa sababu as a part of the peace deal, the government was to protect the Banyamulenge people, who consisted of a majority Congolese Tutsis, against the FDLR, the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, a rebel group that consisted of a majority Hutus, who some took part in the Rwandan genocide. Nkunda alifeel kuwa government iliwa betray, which was true, and the only way the Banyamulenge could defend themselves, it will be them to take up arms and make allies with other Congolese ethnic groups and defend themselves against the Hutu militias and their allies, who are still determined to finish what they had started in Rwanda a few years back, the complete extinction of the Tutsis.
So when you are thinking about Nkunda protecting Tutsi, yes, I am. And I have to accept that. And I have to protect Tutsi. But the way to protect Tutsi is to have friends in other communities. Is to look for them supporters from other communities. Is to work with others so that they can accept them like brothers.
As a Congolese Tutsi, Nkunda was supported by the Banyamulenge people. A lot of them joined the CNDP, which morphed into a formidable rebel force in the DRC. But Nkunda was much loved by the Rwandan government that financially supported the CNDP. This support once again stifled relations between Rwanda and the DRC. Rwanda ilifeel kuwa morally obligated to defend Congolese Tutsis after having witnessed what had happened to their people in 1994. In January of 2009, events turned against Nkunda, where he was captured by Rwandan soldiers as he was trying to flee the DRC towards Rwanda, after his rebel group had faced severe losses after facing attacks from the Congolese army.
According to Lieutenant General Numbi, a high official of the Congolese army, Mr. Nkunda was arrested in Rwanda after some clashes between his men, 3 battalions, and the Rwandan army. He was apparently arrested very near the Congolese border. The pending question is whether the Rwandan authorities will now hand him over to the Congolese authorities, and also whether the Congolese authorities will ask the Rwandan authorities to do so.
Now, this really seems to be a stunning reversal of fortunes for Laurent Nkunda. He's previously been supported by Rwanda, or at least that's been the view from the outside. Why has Rwanda all of a sudden decided to turn against him?
Well, it's unclear, and what's for sure is that there is another of these top men who is now the man that Rwanda is working with, but working with in a different dynamic. At the moment, there is a bit of trust apparently between Rwanda and Congo, and they're trying to join the effort to hunt down the Rwandan Hutu rebels, those who were allegedly responsible for the genocide in Rwanda back in 1994. And it seems that in this swift of alliances, Mr. Nkunda was not part of the new joint force that is now due to hand down those militiamen. However, the question is whether Mr. Nkunda will be handed over or whether he will be kept as a possible future ally by Rwanda.
The capture of Nkunda led to the disintegration of the CNDP. Majority of them surrendered their firearms and were incorporated into the Congolese army, and also granted amnesty as a part of the 2009 peace deal between the DRC government and the CNDP. Relative calm resumed in the Kivu regions between 2009 and 2012. Decades-long conflict in the DRC had caused a massive humanitarian crisis in the country. Hundreds of thousands of people were killed during the conflict, and more were internally displaced. The rate of infant mortality in the country was at its lowest. A lot of war crimes were committed by both government forces and the rebels, whom the majority faced no consequences for their actions, due to an incompetent judicial system in the country. The humanitarian crisis prompted a UN intervention in the Congo, leading to the deployment of a peacekeeping force as early as year 2000. In 2012, violence returned in the Congo. Former members of the CNDP decided to turn against the government after citing poor treatment in the army. and the government's failure to fully honor the 2009 peace agreement. The new rebel group called itself the M23, deriving its name from when the 2009 peace agreement was made between the CNDP and the government. That is March 23, 2009.
On the move, M23 rebel fighters marched towards the town of Sake. Carrying their weapons and little else, these men aren't pulling out willingly. Their commanders had to persuade them to leave.
This mutiny led to the capture of the provincial city of Goma by the rebels in November of 2009. But later the M23 seceded Goma back to the Kinshasa government after Uganda brokered a peace deal, resulting the rebels to flee to neighboring Uganda and Rwanda.
General Sultani Makenga is a decision maker of the rebel group M23. The US and the UN have imposed a travel ban on him for recruiting child soldiers. That didn't stop the general from travelling to Kampala to negotiate a withdrawal. He told me the pullout will happen.
Today we are bringing peace. That means all of us should contribute, us M23 as well as the government. We must respect what the presidents of the Great Lakes have asked us to do.
And there were signs of M23's military withdrawal from Goma. Fighters load ammunition captured from the Congolese army. The trucks will be heading to the rebel group's base, north of the city.
Fast forward to 2022, there was a resurgency of the M23 rebels, once again leading to the displacement of people and the loss of lives and the emergence of a lot of rebel groups created under ethnic lines, who have grown tired of the never-ending conflict that has led to the loss of lives and property caused by the government's inability to deal with the rebel groups. Rwanda and Uganda stands accused of supporting the M23, with the latter denying the accusation. Rwanda's problem with the DRC has long revolved around the presence of the FDLR and the Kinshasa government's support for the group. Remember, this group is made up of individuals who participated in the Rwandan genocide 30 years ago. And the Kigali government is not pleased that some escaped justice. And for the support the FDLR gets from the DRC government, Rwanda considers the Congolese government as genocide sympathizers, hence the timid relations between the two administrations, making it unsurprisingly that Rwanda is supporting the M23, that does not like the Kinshasa government. It is a tit-for-tat kind of an affair. A lot of trials to bring about a long-lasting peace in Eastern DRC has been in vain. The presence of foreign peacekeeping troops in the country has not amounted to any long-lasting peace. This conflict revolves around dissatisfaction against the DRC government, ethnic violence with foreign interference, sustained through the exploitation of Congo's natural resources. As a result, life for ordinary Eastern Congolese have been made quite difficult. People have lost their homes, the loss of their loved ones, human rights abuses committed against men, women, and children. Disputes are best resolved through negotiations. It is upon all the involved warring parties to come together at the negotiating table and talk their way out of this mess, so as to stop human suffering in DRC. If not, violence in the DRC will never stop, and people will continue to suffer for no good reason.